The novel coronavirus pandemic has taught us to appreciate all things local. Local producers, local traders, local food and home essentials. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has even asked the country to take the vocal about local pledge. This week, we'll introduce you to the people and projects who are empowering local businesses to not only stand tall, but also helping the environment in the process. Hello and welcome to Eco India. I'm Sanuta Raghu, coming to you from my neighborhood in Mumbai. The UN Refugee Agency has warned that climate change is already forcing a rapidly increasing number of people to leave their homes. In such a situation, supporting the locals to adapt to these consequences could help to slow down the process. In India's apple state, Himachal Pradesh, some apple farmers are already working on a collaborative model to support each other and mitigate the effects of climate change.
It's been 35 years since Bharat Singh Rana started growing apples in Himrol, a secluded village tucked away in the mountainous state of Uttarakhand. Apples were introduced to India by the British in the late 1800s. Orchards have now taken over several slopes in this ecologically fragile region. Over the past 10 years, farmers like Rana have started to witness some of the harshest effects of climate change.
My ancestral orchard was planted by my paternal grandfather. I've also put hard work into caring for these apple trees. Until 10 years ago, I was able to harvest 600 cartons of apples. Now, as a result of climate change, we're experiencing sudden hailstorms and rain during the flowering season. It even gets cold out of season. As a result, our apple harvest has declined a lot.
Apples are the main cash crop in Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, but they are a rare and expensive fruit in India. And farmers have a tough time too. The terrain means that orchards are often scattered and remote, which makes the access to a direct market difficult. Many also own small farms and cannot afford to invest in efficient packing materials or transportation. And one of the biggest disadvantages in the supply chain between farmers and consumers is that it is controlled by several middlemen who eat into the income. But Rana wanted the community in Himrol to stand together rather than individually navigate an already unpredictable market. He brought apple growers from neighboring villages together with the help of a local trust called Shri Jagdamba Samiti. Under the Apple Project, as it is called, small farmers are now joint owners of an end-to-end production system that includes collection, procurement, sorting, grading, packing, transporting, and marketing their produce.
Businesses or producer, दोनों के दो different world हैं.
Businesses and producers are from two different worlds and have to deal with different problems. For the producer, access to market is an issue, not just in India but around the world. And on the other hand, the market needs volume. Our idea is to bring these two together so they can benefit from each other. If they come together, it's a win-win situation.
Grants and investments run the system, which now includes access to a fully automatic, controlled atmosphere cold storage that holds apples for up to a year. Normal cold storage means apples can only be kept for 3 months. But with oxygen and an increased carbon dioxide concentration level, these apples will last longer. They've also begun making and marketing other products from the fruit together to reduce waste. As the farmers earn profits, they begin paying back investors, and the economic ownership of the company gets transferred to the farmers. With time, it is hoped that the entire business will be 100% farmer-owned. Since the apple project was introduced, some farmers have doubled their income, like Rana.
किसान का माल जो है किसान के बगीचे से ही कोल्ड स्टोर वाली समिति उठा लेती है।
These days, an assigned team picks up the fruits from the farmers and does all the arrangements.
राष्ट्रीय स्तर के जो रेट होते हैं उनको
We're given a good price by them in accordance with that day's market rate. And all of this while sitting at home. We're able to send our children to better schools, and our lifestyles have definitely changed.
और लाइफस्टाइल चेंज हुई है।
The Apple project has reached 7,000 farmers across 90 villages in the traditional apple-growing regions of the Indian Himalayas. Together, they now co-own 43% of the venture, slowly empowering an agrarian community that doesn't always get its due.
Now, coal mining continues to destroy small towns and settlements in many parts of the world. People were forced to leave their homes because coal was found in the earth beneath them. Big holes were dug. And what happened after the miners moved away? Most of the time, nothing. In Brandenburg, a biologist has found a way to bring the lost back to life.
They are one step closer to extinction. Open cast mines in Germany. These heavy machines here in the east will stop extracting brown coal in 2023. For decades, the digging in Lienschwalde meant secure energy supplies and jobs, but it's also a dirty business, a main contributor to CO2 emissions and a blow to the landscape, now blank and ripped off its biodiversity and vegetation, and homes. Christina Grätz grew up in a village that was destroyed to make way for the shovels. One day I went to school with my brother in the morning. Everything was normal. Then, when we came back in the afternoon and walked to our house at the end of the village, they had already removed all the windows and doors of the houses. Demolition started on that day, and for me it was very eerie. It was as if dead eyes were looking back at me, and it still feels like it was only today. Losing her home and seeing nature vanish left a mark on her life. Today, the biologist is giving the region's deserted landscape a new face by bringing back local flora. Dubbed the Green Heart, this meadow in the midst of the open mine is the core of a 1,200-hectare big area for conservation, giving regional and scarce vegetation like field cowweed a home. As a botanist, I could cry when I'm here. It just warms my heart because it is so beautiful. 90% of the vegetation here are on the red list of threatened species. A safe haven for the wild and rare. The Green Heart was the first part in the open mine to be restored in 2009. It's a team effort between the local coal company and Grätz with her know-how about wild plants. Ecologists from all over the world visit to learn about this project. I now see post-mining landscapes as an opportunity for nature, huge spaces that are solely reserved for nature without settlements. In the future, this concept will be applied to many more spaces. One example, solar parks. They're usually embedded in fields with only little plant variety, but here a specially blended combination of regional flowers blossom. And for Christina Grätz, that's an important pillar for her business. Close to the open mine, she and her team grow wild and rare flowers for regional and EU conservation projects. And it's also here on the company's farm where they produce the seed mixes. Unlike cultivated plants, the seed of wild ones are ripe for harvesting at different times, and they are harvested by hand. A tough job. For the greater knapweed, the fields need to be checked every day to not miss the moment before the wind carries away all the seeds. It's learning by doing and lucrative. Depending on size and harvesting technique, seeds can cost from 35 to 1,600 euros per kilo. By the end of the year, Grätz and her crew will have 4 tons of the valuable goods. The business that once started with 2 employees in 2011 today keeps 25 scientists and workers busy. Conservation law now requires that only regional seeds are used in such restoration projects, and Grätz's company is one of the first to offer these, whilst also making expert analysis, rescuing threatened plants or relocating ants. So nothing gets lost. Every little thing in nature on this planet, in this universe, is somehow interconnected. We belong together. Also humans belong to this. And if I lose a part of it, then I lose a part of the whole thing and a bit of myself. This is where my personal motivation comes from. And that's also why Christina Grätz wants to go further. As the barren lands around the open mine nearby are getting greener and the business is growing, she is offering her knowledge abroad, where there are still many open mines and spaces that could be revived with threatened regional plants. Next on the list for blossoming landscapes and biodiversity could be Australia.
More and more people from rural areas are moving to the cities across the world. They hope to find work there and earn enough money for themselves and their families. But many a time they struggle to make ends meet. An entrepreneur in Mumbai is helping artisans gain access to the global marketplace so that they can get a better price for their products and ensure a secure future.
Dharavi is a maze of winding alleys. It's Asia's second largest slum, covering 2 square kilometers, and is situated only a few minutes from Mumbai's financial district. It is also Mumbai's largest manufacturing center. Dharavi is a hive of activity. Here, potters with roots in the state of Gujarat work and live alongside the zari embroiders from Uttar Pradesh. Garment makers and plastic recyclers cross paths with metalsmiths, papadum makers, and tanners. In all, there are more than 10,000 skilled craftsmen here. It was this energy that drew entrepreneur Megha Gupta to Dharavi 8 years ago.
This is a place where makers live. And if you give the makers the liberty and access to grow, the whole country will grow.
Gupta's idea was to raise Dharavi market out of relative obscurity by setting up an online marketplace where the artisans can advertise their workshops and products. Now they can reach clients far beyond Dharavi. The potential is huge, as Dharavi's workshops sell goods worth over 60 billion rupees or about 800 million euros each year.
Every little lane is like a mini factory where you have different workshops producing different things, and it's so self-sufficient because they're not educated, their voices are not heard. I believe by launching a website for them and putting their products and their work online for the larger markets to see, I am sort of giving them a voice.
Hanzala Khan's workshop makes leather goods and specializes in wallets. Before starting to sell its products on dharavimarket.com, it had sales of about 130,000 euros a year. But Megha Gupta thought the workshop could do better, especially if it switched from animal hides to plant leather. Hanzala Khan agreed, and now his company only uses artificial leather made from recycled paper. It doesn't tear, is easy to work with, and it's washable.
We hope to take this eco-friendly material to various trade fairs so that corporates can order in bulk, and the whole idea is again to move towards sustainability.
Each product is photographed and uploaded to the website. At the beginning, Megha Gupta had just 5 artisans on dharavimarket.com. Now it showcases more than 300 workshops. Gupta adds between 10 and 25% to the craftsmen's prices depending on volume. But they say it is worth it, and that their incomes have increased by 20 to 40% thanks to direct access to a much broader market. When Mohammad Gufran Sheikh first came to Dharavi, he had to leave his family behind in faraway Bihar.
My family used to live in the village, but now they live here with me. The kids go to school here. I can now afford the fees and the rent. Earlier, I couldn't.
A lot of the small workshops in Dharavi have signed up to Megha Gupta's portal. It's a win-win deal, yet Gupta has a much larger aim: to enhance the health and sustainable development of the entire community.
Now we all have to invest in our planet. It's up to us to protect our climate and the environment that we live in. To invest in and run an environmentally friendly company in a poor country like Armenia is very hard. But what if a company could actually make profits by protecting the environment? It is possible. Let's see how.
Poverty in the countryside and Western affluence in the capital, Yerevan. Armenia is a country marked by stark contrasts.
Awareness and knowledge are key.
Until 1991, Armenia was a part of the former Soviet Union. After the collapse of communism, the country fell into an economic crisis and still hasn't fully recovered. Small and mid-sized companies struggle, so environmental protection has to yield profits.
Since 2014, our new wastewater recycling unit has saved us over 100,000 euros.
Companies here have rarely put much thought into environmentally friendly production, but things are starting to change.
If we reorganize our production successfully, then it also makes good business sense.
Armenia's economy is largely dominated by agriculture. Cereals, fruit and vegetables are the main crops, like here at the foot of Mount Ararat. With some 3,000 hours of sunshine a year, peaches, apricots and plums grow in abundance. This fruit farmer turns his harvests into dried fruit. He switched to organic production and no longer uses chemical fertilizers and pesticides. A local environmental NGO helped him make the switch. Financial support comes from the International Climate Initiative. The organization advises companies about sustainable practices. The fruit farmers' ovens are now solar-powered and have more efficient ventilation. The fruit drying process is now 5 times faster, saving energy and cost.
Production in Armenia and our region isn't big enough to compete with neighboring countries, such as Iran or Turkey. Since Armenia is a small country, it needs competitive products. Fruits and dried fruits are among those products.
The dried fruit now has an EU organic certification and these days also sells in France.
He is a role model without any doubt. It's also about the person. When he starts something, he wants to finalize it and finish it with a good result.
Many Armenian businesses would like to get their foot in the door of European markets. But before that can happen, they need to improve production standards and boost their environmental credentials. Industry accounts for just 25% of Armenia's GDP. Today, Nuna Harutyunyan is visiting a battery factory on the outskirts of Yerevan. Byproducts of the production process, sulfuric acid and lead, used to end up in the factory's wastewater, but the company has now found a cleaner solution.
Not many people are necessarily analyzing or viewing the process because business person looks on his benefits, how he runs the business, and it's not necessarily that he knows all the details on the impact on environment.
The car batteries are cooled before they're charged. The factory now uses technology that cleans the cooling water after the charging process, so it can be recycled. Meanwhile, in this bakery, leftover pastry is no longer simply thrown away. It's turned into biscuits. Sometimes the solutions are simple. Any bread that isn't sold is turned into breadcrumbs, another of the NGO's ideas. And the breadcrumbs have proved a bestseller.
To produce anything in Europe is often too expensive. That's why a lot of local producers are under pressure. It's especially hard for small farmers who can't produce as cheap as their competitors abroad. For example, shepherds in Germany are unable to sell their sheep wool, and this unsold wool is often burned. What a waste that is. A caring tailor thought exactly that and is now turning things around for a local shepherd.
A flock of sheep lazing in the shade. The first lambs of the year have arrived, and so shepherd Florian Preiss has brought his animals to rest in a green patch between warehouses and factories in the industrial Ruhr area in western Germany. Normally, he keeps his flock on the move. He's one of the few shepherds left in the country.
There are around 1,000 professional shepherds left in Germany. That's not so many, really. I don't know many young people who want to do this job. I'll continue to do it with passion until I have to step down. It's certainly a dying profession that nobody wants to do. You don't make much money. You just don't get rich doing it.
The sheep are eventually sold for their meat, but municipalities also pay shepherds to have their flocks graze on public land. But wool has become a losing business these days. Sales don't even cover the costs of having the sheep sheared.
That's some beautiful merino wool. I have merino sheep. They still have the best quality wool. I get over €1 per kilo. Colleagues of mine who have other breeds get a lot less. They get 45 to 65 cents per kilo. Some of them don't sell it anymore, choosing to burn the wool or toss it instead.
His wool goes to China, where it's processed and ends up in bedding, upholstery, carpets, and other textile products. Some of these end up back on the European market, where they're sold at high prices. That makes Brigitte Pappe furious.
It's totally absurd. Buyers here purchase the wool and send it all the way to China for washing. Then it's sent to Paris, where it's packaged, and suddenly everyone wants it.
Brigitte Pappe is a self-taught tailor. She initially trained to be a dental assistant. Now she's a businesswoman with a passion for wool. She calls her product Mosel tweed.
I'm a fan of Harris tweed, which is also wool. So I wondered whether the wool from the sheep in our region was also suitable for fabric. And it turns out that it's very suitable for cloth. And at that point, I told myself that I'd do my best to save local wool.
The cloth is made in Germany solely from wool out of the region. She already has about 100 meters in stock. The company produces vests, caps, and sport coats from the material. Pappe receives support from the Wagenfeld spinning mill. In a globalized textile market, producing fabric regionally is difficult. The production costs are too high, the quantities too low. Her wool is processed here, dyed and spun into yarn. Wool from German sheep barely plays a role in the international market.
We get our wool from all over the world, from New Zealand, Australia, and South America, also from England. Depending on the requirements we have to meet, we get our wool from everywhere.
This mill receives only about 10 tons of wool from Germany each month, compared to the 220 tons it gets from New Zealand. Wool from down under is purer than wool from other places. It's softer and cheaper, too, because it's produced very efficiently. The Wagenfeld spinning mill wants to promote local wool, but has no illusions about the future of wool from Germany.
Sadly, consumers today are not willing to pay higher prices at the retail level. They're more interested in getting new products faster. They want to see trends and changes in fashion, so the cost has to be low. It would be nice if people could change their priorities.
Brigitte Papa remains enthusiastic about her woolen fabric. It may be expensive, but demand from high-quality, sustainable fashion is growing. Her mission is to eventually produce quantities approaching 10,000 meters of her Mosel tweed.
Now, human beings are not islands. We thrive on supporting and caring for each other. I hope this episode has given you a few ideas to extend your support to anyone in need in these trying times, especially in your neighborhood. I'll leave you with that thought and see you again next week. Until then, goodbye.